Okay, so let's dive into some OET reading hacks. You know, time management is super crucial for the OET reading subtest.
Right. It really is.
Juggling medical knowledge with, test-taking skills can be a real challenge when you're under pressure.
Yeah, it definitely can.
But don't worry, in this deep dive, we're going to equip you with proven time management techniques to help you just master the OET reading challenge.
What's interesting is that a lot of people don't realize the OET reading section isn't solely about your medical knowledge. It's more about how quickly and efficiently you can find and understand key info
Right.
and under a strict time limit.
Yeah, it's like a real-world skill that you'll be using in your career anyway.
Absolutely.
Like reading patient records or research articles or even those ever-changing medical guidelines.
Exactly.
So to really unpack this, we've got some amazing advice from the OET experts over at OET Wings, which is a podcast, dedicated to helping people ace this test.
Yeah, and one of the things they really emphasized is understanding the structure of the OET reading subtest itself. Oh, okay.
Because it's divided into 3 parts, and they each kind of test, different aspects of reading comprehension.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly.
Oh, shit.
So, knowing what to expect at each is half the battle, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
It helps you develop a really good strategy.
So let's break it down, right? Section by section.
Sure.
Part A, it's all about speed. It's you've got 20 questions, 4 short texts, and only 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It's intense.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
It's a rapid fire matching game, you know?
Yeah.
Connecting information to the right question that's super fast.
You've really got to think on your feet.
Yeah, exactly.
But instead of panicking, think of it as a chance to, use those quick thinking skills and really practice retrieving information quickly.
Oh, okay.
And, one of the best tools you have for this is skimming.
Skimming. So you're saying I shouldn't read every single word?
No, not at all.
Okay. This isn't about in-depth understanding. It's about getting a general feel for the content.
Oh.
So spend just a minute or two scanning the headings of those 4 texts and just ask yourself, what are the key themes here? What's the big picture?
Oh, so it's like scouting the terrain before you actually start the race.
Exactly.
You kind of know where everything is.
Yeah, you'll have a mental roadmap, which will save you a lot of time when you're actually looking for the specific answers.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What else can we do to navigate this 15-minute sprint?
Okay, well, once you have that mental map, it's time to put on your detective hat and locate keywords.
Keywords.
Yeah, so this means circling or underlining the most important terms in each question.
Okay.
Because they are your signposts, they're guiding you to the right info within the texts.
Okay, so let's say a question asks about the side effects of a new medication.
Right.
I would look for those exact words.
Exactly.
Okay.
By highlighting them, you're basically telling your brain what to look for. It's like having a mental searchlight, zeroing in on that specific information.
Okay.
And another helpful tip is to actually tackle the texts in order.
In order.
Yeah. So start with text A and then move on to B, C, and D.
So don't jump back and forth.
No.
Okay.
Answering in sequence like that keeps you organized and stops you from going back and forth, which can really waste time.
Oh, that makes sense.
Think of it like following a recipe. You wouldn't skip from step 1 to step 5, right?
Right.
There's a logical order for a reason.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Stay focused, stay on track. But what happens when you hit a wall? You're looking at a question, the clock is ticking, but you just can't figure out the answer.
Oh, yeah, we've all been there.
Mm.
It's really tempting to just get stuck on that one question, but that's where the don't get stuck strategy comes in.
Okay.
Sometimes the best thing to do is just mark it, move on, and then come back later if you have time.
So it's okay to skip ahead. I always feel like I have to answer everything in order.
Yeah, I know a lot of people feel that way, but trust me, moving on can be a real lifesaver in a timed test. You might even find that when you come back to that question later, the answer is actually clearer.
Oh, correct.
Your brain has had time to kind of process everything in the background, and you might even find clues in other parts of the text that kind of help you understand that first question better.
Yeah, it's like taking a break from a puzzle.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to step away and come back with a fresh perspective.
Exactly.
So we've got our speed strategies down for part A. What about part B? That's a whole different ballgame, right?
It is. Part B, the workplace wisdom section, is all about applying those reading skills to more practical, real-world situations, things you'd actually encounter in a healthcare setting.
Oh, okay.
So you'll be given short texts, like memos, emails, or guidelines, and the questions will focus on finding specific details and understanding the main points.
Well, that sounds very similar to the kind of reading that healthcare professionals actually do on a daily basis. So how do we tackle these workplace texts like efficiently?
Well, one game changer is to read the question first.
Before even looking at the text.
Yes. Before you even glance at the text, take a moment to understand what that question is asking. Like, what specific information are they looking for? What's the key takeaway they want you to get?
So it's all about having a clear target before I even start reading.
Exactly.
That way I won't get lost in all the extra details.
Yeah.
I can see how that would help me focus.
Exactly. You don't want to be wandering aimlessly through the text like you're lost in a supermarket without a shopping list.
Right.
You need to go straight for the item you need.
Got it.
And once you know what you're looking for, the next step is to focus on specific details.
So I shouldn't overthink or overanalyze. Just stick to the facts and move on.
Exactly. Part B is all about being precise. Think of it like a surgical procedure you need to be targeted, efficient, and accurate.
Okay.
And to help you with that, remember the power of eliminating incorrect answers.
Oh, the good old process of elimination.
Which is a classic for a reason.
But how does that actually save me time?
Well, by actively ruling out the options that are clearly wrong, you narrow down your choices, and you're more likely to pick the right one. It's like clearing away the clutter in your mind.
Oh, so it's like decluttering my mental workspace.
Exactly.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've conquered the speed of Part A, the precision of Part B, and now we're facing the ultimate challenge, Part C, the long text marathon.
Right.
This is the big one.
Yeah, it is. You need a marathon mindset for this one. Imagine 2 long, detailed passages, and you have 35 minutes to read and analyze them.
Oh, my God.
It's where your stamina, your focus, and your strategic reading skills are really put to the test.
I'm already feeling a bit overwhelmed just thinking about it.
I know it can seem daunting.
Like, where do we even begin with these massive texts?
Well, don't worry, we have a plan. The first step is to divide your time wisely.
Okay.
So allocate roughly 17 minutes per text and stick to that schedule no matter what.
So it's like setting these mini deadlines to keep me on track.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I can do that. So what are some other tips for like actually navigating these longer passages?
Sure. So I think one of the best pieces of advice we got from OET Wings was to think about how you're actually reading these longer texts. You know, they said instead of trying to read the whole thing all at once, it's better to break it down into smaller, more digestible chunks.
So instead of trying to tackle the whole thing, I should focus on one paragraph at a time.
Exactly.
Okay.
It prevents you from feeling overwhelmed by this wall of text. Read each paragraph carefully, make sure you really understand the main idea, and then move on to the next.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. It's like climbing a mountain one step at a time, instead of trying to leap to the summit all at once.
I like that analogy.
It's about breaking it down into manageable steps, right?
Exactly.
And then once I have a good grasp of each paragraph, I should go back to those keywords from the questions to kind of like guide my search for the relevant information.
Absolutely, they're like your compass.
Okay.
Yeah, guiding you to those key details.
So it's like I'm using those keywords like a metal detector to find the treasure buried within the text.
Exactly. And even if you are feeling really pressed for time, don't skip over those headings, subheadings, or any visuals. You might see like diagrams or charts.
Okay.
They often have really valuable clues that can help you answer the questions faster.
It's like they sprinkled little cheat sheets throughout the text.
Yeah, I like that.
But they're totally legal to use.
Absolutely. Use every tool you have available.
Okay, cool.
So we've covered a lot of information. I know. So how about we recap those key takeaways from the OET Wings experts before we move on?
Yeah, that's a great idea. A little repetition never hurts, especially when we're trying to like solidify these strategies.
Okay, so for part A, remember that initial skim.
Right.
Focus on those introductory and concluding sentences and practice, practice, practice.
Got it.
And for part B, it's all about reading those questions carefully before you even look at the text.
Right.
Scan for those keywords and pay close attention to the sentences around those keywords for the details. And for part C, remember to break those long texts into smaller chunks. Use the keywords as your guide. And don't forget those helpful visuals.
Okay. I'm feeling so much more confident about tackling each sections strategically now. But there's one thing that I'm still a little bit worried about, and that's like test day nerves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Test anxiety is a real thing.
Did the experts have any advice on how to like manage that?
They did. They had some really good advice on how to stay calm and focused when you're under pressure.
So like, what's the secret? Meditation, yoga,
Yeah.
deep breathing.
Well, those can all be helpful, but one of the simplest and most effective things you can do is just make sure you get a good night's sleep before the test.
Okay, I know it sounds super obvious, but
Yeah.
I am so guilty of trying to cram everything in the night before a big exam.
I know it's tempting, but sleep deprivation really does affect your brain power.
Right.
Makes it harder to focus, to remember information, and to make those quick decisions you'll need during the reading test.
So it's like running a marathon on an empty stomach.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
And speaking of fueling up, the experts also suggest eating a healthy breakfast on test day.
Okay.
You know, avoid sugary foods that can cause that energy crash.
Yeah.
Opt for something that will give you sustained energy.
Okay, so it's like giving my brain a high-octane boost.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
But what about those negative thoughts that just creep into your mind during the test?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to finish on time.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to get a terrible score. How do you, combat those?
Well, it's so important to just be aware of those negative thoughts because they really can affect how well you do.
Right.
The experts suggested focusing on your strengths, remind yourself of all the hard work you've put in and try to visualize yourself succeeding.
That's like having a personal cheerleader in my head.
Exactly.
I love that.
And lastly, if you do start to feel really overwhelmed or anxious during the test, just take a few deep breaths.
Okay.
Deep breathing is such a simple but powerful way to calm your nerves. It can regulate your heart rate and reduce stress.
Okay. I'm adding that to my toolkit right now. Deep breaths, positive self-talk, a good night's sleep, a healthy breakfast.
There you go.
I'm feeling much more prepared now.
That's the spirit.
Yeah, to face this challenge head on.
Remember, you've got this.
I do.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to those time management techniques one more time.
Okay.
They seem so crucial for success.
Time is your most valuable resource on the OET reading test, and knowing how to use it wisely can really make a
It's
difference.
about becoming a time management ninja.
Exactly.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up this episode with some final thoughts and leave you with some key takeaways to ponder as you continue your OET journey.
Sounds good. Welcome back. So, we talked about how important that initial skim is, right?
Right.
And the OET Wings experts really emphasize that,
Okay.
especially for Part A.
Okay.
Like, don't just jump into reading every single word, right?
Yep.
Take a moment to just look at the headings, the subheadings, any visuals, if there are diagrams or charts. It's about getting that big picture before you even look at the questions.
So it's like, when you watch a movie and you get those little snippets at the beginning,
Exactly.
like the previews?
Yeah, like a preview
Okay.
to get you excited for the main event. And they also said, pay attention to those first and last sentences of each paragraph.
Okay.
They usually hold the main ideas or takeaways.
Oh, so you don't have to read every single sentence.
Right.
Okay, I like that.
You can kind of speed read, but strategically.
Right.
And that's where those timed mock tests are so helpful.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like a skill you really need to practice.
Yeah, you have to train your brain to do this under pressure. It's
Right.
one thing to understand the strategy, but can you actually do it when the clock's ticking?
Yeah, it's like you can read about swimming all day long, but until you get in the water,
Exactly.
it's a whole different
Yeah.
story. What about Part B? Those workplace texts. Did they have any advice on how to tackle those?
They did. They actually said it's really important to read the questions very carefully before you even look at the text.
Okay, so it's kind of counterintuitive. You would think you'd look at the text first.
You would, but it actually helps you focus your reading and find the right information faster.
Okay, so it's like, when you're going on a treasure hunt and you have a map,
Yeah,
you know where to look so
Yeah.
you don't waste time digging in the wrong spots.
exactly.
Okay.
And once you've got that question in mind, they said, scan the text for keywords that relate to the question.
Okay.
Our brains are really good at picking up patterns and connections.
Right.
So if you prime your mind with those keywords, you're more likely to see them when you're scanning the text.
Oh, so it's like I'm activating my mental radar.
Exactly.
And then once I've found those keywords, I should pay close attention to the sentences around them, right?
Precisely. That's usually where you'll find those specific details or the information you need to answer the question correctly.
So it's like being a detective piecing together the clues
Exactly.
to solve a case.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's like a puzzle.
Okay, so Part A and Part B are feeling a lot more manageable now.
Good.
But I got to say Part C still seems a little intimidating.
Yeah, Part C is definitely the most challenging.
Did the experts have any, words of wisdom for us on how to approach those long passages?
Yeah, they did. One key strategy is to break the text down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
So instead of trying to read the whole thing at once, I should focus on like one paragraph at a time.
Exactly. It's all about preventing that feeling of being overwhelmed by a wall of text.
Right.
Just take it one paragraph at a time, make sure you understand it, and then move on to the next.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's like climbing a mountain. You take it one step at a time.
I like that analogy.
You don't try to jump to the top.
Exactly.
And then once I've kind of got a handle on each paragraph, I can use those keywords again to guide my search for the relevant info.
Yeah, exactly, like a metal detector.
Yeah,
Yeah, looking for those important details.
exactly.
And don't forget about those headings, subheadings, and visuals, even if you're feeling rushed for time.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they often have clues that can save you time when you're answering the questions.
So they're like little cheat sheets hidden within the text,
I like that.
but they're perfectly legal to use.
Exactly. Use everything you can.
Cool.
So we've covered a lot of ground. Let's recap those key takeaways from the OET Wings experts one more time before we move on.
Yeah, good idea. Repetition helps solidify everything.
For part A, remember that initial skim.
Okay.
Focus on those intro and concluding sentences and practice, practice, practice.
Got it.
For part B, it's all about reading the questions carefully before you even look at the text.
Right.
Scan for those keywords and pay close attention to the surrounding sentences for those crucial details.
Okay, got it.
And for part C, break those long texts down into smaller chunks. Use those keywords as your guide, and don't forget about those helpful visuals.
Okay, I'm feeling so much more confident now about approaching each section strategically.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that I'm still a little worried about, and that's test day nerves.
Oh, yeah. Test anxiety is real.
Do the experts have any advice for managing that?
They do. The OET Wings experts gave some great advice on how to stay calm and focused under pressure.
Okay, like what's the secret?
Well, one of the simplest and most effective things is to get a good night's sleep before the test.
I know it sounds so obvious, but I'm so guilty of like cramming all night before an exam.
I know it's tempting, but lack of sleep really affects your cognitive function.
Right.
Makes it harder to focus, to remember information, to make decisions, all those things you need for the reading test.
It's like trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Not at all.
And speaking of fueling up, make sure to have a healthy breakfast on test day. Avoid the sugary stuff that will make you crash later and go for something that will give you sustained energy throughout the test.
Oh, so like a high-octane boost for my brain.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
But what about those negative thoughts that creep in during the test?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to finish on time. I'm going to get a terrible score.
Right.
How do I combat those?
It's so important to be aware of those negative thought patterns because they can really affect your performance. The experts said to focus on your strengths, all the hard work you've put in, and try to visualize yourself succeeding.
Oh, so it's like having my own personal cheerleading squad in my head.
Exactly.
I love that.
And lastly, if you start to feel overwhelmed or anxious, just take a few deep breaths.
Okay.
Deep breathing is a really simple but powerful technique for calming your nerves. It can regulate your heart rate, reduce stress.
Okay, so deep breaths, positive self-talk, a good night's sleep, a healthy breakfast.
There we go.
I'm feeling much more prepared to face this challenge.
That's the spirit.
Yeah,
Remember, you've got this.
I do. Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to those time management techniques one more time.
Okay.
They just seem so crucial for doing well on this test.
They are. Time is your most valuable resource on the OET reading test, so you have to know how to use it strategically.
It's like being a time management ninja.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up this episode, I want to circle back to something we mentioned earlier about how these skills aren't just for the test.
Right. They're valuable for your entire career
Exactly.
as a healthcare professional.
So think about how you can apply them to your everyday work life.
Yeah, whether you're reading patient notes, research articles, the latest guidelines,
Right.
being able to quickly and accurately understand information is essential.
So practice these strategies and watch how they empower you not just on the OET, but in your future career too.
That's right.
Right, that wraps up our deep dive into the OET reading section.
It does.
We hope you found it helpful and encouraging.
I hope so.
Remember, practice consistently, manage your time strategically, and stay positive. Those are your keys to OET success.
Yes.
Until next time, keep learning. Keep striving for excellence, and you got this.
You do.
Okay, so we're back and, ready to kind of wrap things up. Our deep dive into mastering the OET reading section.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, from understanding how the test is structured to those specific strategies for each part.
Right, and even like how to deal with those, test day jitters.
Absolutely.
But before we send you off to practice all these awesome techniques, let's kind of summarize everything into some key takeaways.
Okay, sounds good.
So what are the big picture things that our listeners should remember as they prepare for this challenge?
Okay, well, first off, I think it's really important to remember that the OET reading subtest is more about skill than just knowledge.
Okay.
It's not enough to just, understand medical terms or like what the passage is about.
Right.
You have to be able to actually find the info quickly and accurately understand those complex texts and manage your time really well.
Right, and that's where those time management strategies that we talked about really come in.
Yeah, they're essential.
Practice them. Make them like second nature to you, and you'll be well on your way to like acing this test.
Definitely. And the more you practice under timed conditions, the more confident you'll feel on test day.
Yeah, it's like with anything else. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Exactly.
So make time for practice and don't be afraid to push yourself. Try more challenging texts and stricter time limits.
Exactly. Push those boundaries.
Yeah, and speaking of challenges, don't let those long passages in Part C like scare you.
Right.
Remember, you've got all those strategies to help you.
You have a whole toolkit.
Break it down.
Exactly.
Use your keywords, and don't be afraid to skim and scan.
You don't need to understand every single word
Right.
to answer the questions correctly. It's about focusing on those key takeaways.
Yeah, those important nuggets of information.
Like panning for gold, you're looking for those nuggets. You don't need all the sand and dirt.
Right, exactly. And lastly, remember, mindset is everything.
Absolutely.
Believe in yourself. Stay positive.
It makes a big difference.
Don't let those test day nerves get the best of you.
Yeah, you've got this.
You've put in the work. You've learned the strategies. Now go out there and crush it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, one last thought for you as you continue preparing for the OET.
Okay?
Think about how you can use these time management techniques even after the test is over.
Oh, that's such a good point.
We're not just talking about test-taking tricks here.
Right?
These are valuable skills that will help you throughout your career.
As a healthcare professional.
Exactly.
So yeah, think about how you can apply these to your everyday work.
Whether you're reading patient notes, research articles, or guidelines,
Right.
you need to be able to find and understand information quickly.
So take these strategies to heart, practice them, and watch how they help you not just on the OET, but in your future career as well.
Exactly. They'll make you a better healthcare professional.
Awesome. All right, so that wraps up our deep dive into the OET reading section.
It does.
We hope you found this episode helpful and encouraging.
I hope so too.
Remember, practice consistently, manage your time wisely, and stay positive.
Yes, those are the keys.
Those are your keys to success.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep learning, keep striving for excellence, and you got this.
You definitely do.